If you have a child who is acting out, the first thing to look to is what they just ate. Don't
Mm.
make it wrong. Don't blame them. Don't say it's just a phase. Really look towards, what is it that my kid just ate, and how can I, support my child in balancing out their mood right now.
So your child is acting up or suddenly exhibiting signs of autism or allergies? What if I told you a change in diet and strengthening their gut biome could alleviate or even eliminate these symptoms? That's what our guest is going to help you learn about in this episode. Talk about the power of one person. Several years ago, one mom, Zen Honeycutt, had an idea for organizing moms all over America to unite against the things she saw happening right before her eyes with her own 3 sons, experiencing symptoms of allergies and autism. She realized moms needed to hear about the dangers of engineered foods as well as the chemicals, pesticides, and fungicides they spray on the foods, and to have a place to reach out to each other, support each other, and learn from each other. So she founded Moms Across America, whose website introduces them as, quote, a national coalition of unstoppable moms, unquote. And she is also the author of Unstoppable, Transforming Sickness and Struggle into Triumph, Empowerment, and a Celebration of Community, published in 2018. She's going to talk to us today about solving childhood issues using good food, food safety, the difference between non-GMO and organic foods, the dangers of school lunches, and community food cooperatives. The woman Robert Kennedy Jr. calls the modern-day Rachel Carson. Please welcome Zen Honeycutt. Hi, this is Mary Jo Tinlin from Teaching Your Toddler, and today we have a very special guest. We have Zen Honeycutt, who's the founding executive director of Moms Across America. She is going to talk to us today about healthy eating, GMOs, school lunches, neighborhood food programs, all kinds of things. So I can't wait to dive in. Zen, welcome to the show. Give us a little bit of background about you and tell us what you're working on.
Thanks, Mary Jo, and thanks to all your listeners. I am the director of Moms Across America. I have 3 boys that all had all kinds of illnesses, allergies, autism symptoms, autoimmune issues. I couldn't eat dairy for the first year of breastfeeding my son, so I know what that's like for a lot of people. It was a struggle raising my children because they had so many different food allergies. And I looked into the food supply and learned about GMOs, genetically modified organisms, and their related pesticides, the pesticides that they are engineered to withstand. And I said, wait a second, this has got to have something to do with my kids being practically chronically sick. And the majority of my friends having kids with allergies and illnesses. So I looked into it and we went GMO free, and my son's allergies dramatically reduced. Later on, when we went organic, 100% organic, the allergies went from, for instance, a life-threatening nut allergy went from a 19 down to a 0.2. And so that is, no longer life-threatening for him. So clearly massive amount of peace of mind that my son will not die from eating nuts, and various other 20-something other different food allergies. My kids now can eat organic wheat. They can eat organic dairy. They can eat organic eggs. They can eat, organic all kinds of foods that they couldn't eat before. So my family is a walking testament to you can recover your children and you can have their health improve dramatically just by eating organic food and paying attention to what's going on in the gut. So I took all that information and just ran with it and started Moms Across America. And we joined into 4th of July parades to raise awareness about GMOs and labeling, and have had, over 1,000 events in all 50 states just in the first 5 years. We've been around for 10 years now and have, instigated a lot of policy change and lawsuits and different kinds of things, going up against Monsanto and down DuPont to Genta and all of that. So it's been a wild ride, not one that I really ever expected to do, but, there's a saying that goes, a worried mom does better research than the FBI, right?
I have that sign in my bathroom. Oh my gosh.
That
I
is
have
so
that.
funny.
Yes.
Yeah. So we just do it, right? I mean, if there's something that's harming our kids, we go research it and we find out and we go up against it. And I think a lot of your moms could probably relate to what I'm saying. And that's why we are strong. And legislators have said to me that they fear moms more than any other grassroots group out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little synopsis of my background.
Wow, that's great. Gosh, so much to unpack in that. So one of the things that I think I heard you say is it's not really the food allergies we have, it's the stuff that's on the food or in the food, right? It's not eggs,
Yes.
it's not wheat, it's the other stuff.
It's what's being done to the food.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's the genetic modification, it's the pesticides, it's the fungicides, it's the fertilizer, it's all of those chemicals that are being added to the food, and the genetic modification, God knows, we still don't know what the ramifications of those are going to be, because we're the experiment on that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's what's being done to the food. And when you take the time to remove them, and I have to say, most people don't like it when I say this, but when you remove them 100%, 100%, not 80-20, 100%, then you give your body a chance to heal. And you can then later on, in some cases, reintroduce the foods and your body can process them. But you have to give your body time to be able to heal first, from introducing it. For instance, if you wanted to put out a campfire, like if your gut is inflamed because you've been consuming these foods for a long time and you have leaky gut and, behavioral issues because you have an overgrowth of bad gut bacteria in your gut, then you're not going to, like a campfire, you're not going to put a teaspoon of oil on the fire, right? Of fuel on the fire, and expect it to go out. You have to stop putting fuel on the fire altogether in order for that fire to go out. So that's why, we were very, very strict for several months, if not a couple of years, for in eating organic and putting in the good probiotics, the good, sauerkraut, kombucha, apple cider vinegar. My kids even took some probiotics for a little while. But you don't want to depend on those, because those are really usually only about 8 or 9 different versions of bacteria in that probiotic. And your gut's supposed to have 30,000. The average adult has 10,000 maybe right now. So you want to get your bacteria from a variety of different foods, like sauerkraut, different fermented vegetables. And
did you have any trouble getting the kids to eat that?
yeah, I had to have a chart with gold stars on it for a while, to get them and be really on top of it, to have the sauerkraut out every, I'm not sure if I did every meal, but it was definitely every day for months. And it only took about 3 weeks for them to get in the habit of it. And then I didn't have to do the gold stars anymore. But now they take the sauerkraut, I would say, several times a week, maybe not every day, but maybe 4 or 5 times a week, something like that. They'll do it on their own. And they're teenagers now, so they're used to it. But they also can notice, once you start to show them, like, you're not feeling so great right now. Do you think that might have something to do with the cake you just ate, or the school lunch that you just ate, and blah blah, like, have them start noticing how they feel after eating certain foods. They may not notice it right away, but after a couple of times of maybe losing privileges, like my son did when he used to eat school lunches. My middle son, he did not have as many allergies as the other two, and he wanted to eat school lunches on Fridays as a treat. And it turned out that on Friday afternoons after school, he would get into fights with his brother and lose his Saturday morning cartoon privileges the next day, right? Because of the fights with his brother. And after 3 or 4 times of that happening, he realized what was going on, and he decided to no longer eat school lunches at the school. And the behavioral issues went away. So he has and that was when he was probably in 4th grade or something. So, our kids can recognize that food makes them feel a certain way, and they can, reverse their behavior, change their behavior on their own. We just need to give them the space to notice that and recognize it.
Right. If they're not sort of mindful of, gosh, now I'm crabby because I had that, or now I'm whatever. I mean, so again, so much going on there. So the food. So tell me about school lunch. What's going on there, and why? What were those triggers for your son, do you believe?
Well, at that time, I mean, I didn't know really, except that it's junk food. I mean, it's wheat that's sprayed with glyphosate as a drying agent. Glyphosate is in Roundup. 80% of GMOs are engineered to withstand glyphosate as a weed killer, but it's also sprayed on non-GMO foods such as wheat, peas, beans, legumes, oats, barley, things like that, as a drying agent. So it doesn't even have to be GMO to have glyphosate on it. And so a lot of the majority of the wheat samples that we tested, we recently did school lunch testing, were positive. It was like 99% of them were positive for glyphosate at high levels, like 200, part per billion, high levels. It only takes like 1.1 parts per billion to destroy beneficial gut bacteria.
Wow.
So so my son was reacting to something in the school lunches. I don't know what it
Mm-hmm.
was, but I think it's mostly the glyphosate. And so
Mm-hmm.
we recently tested 43 school lunch samples for not only glyphosate, because some farmers are moving away from glyphosate and they're using other toxic chemicals. So we tested for 220 other harmful pesticides. We tested for heavy metals, for veterinary drugs and hormones, and for nutrient levels. And the results were horrible. I mean, 95.3% of the school lunch items contained carcinogenic, endocrine disrupting, and liver disease causing glyphosate. And to put
Wow.
that in comparison, the Detox Project recently tested grocery store items like protein powders and oatmeal bars and things like that, and only about 60% of them were positive for glyphosate. So
Wow.
our kids are eating way more glyphosate in schools
Mm-hmm.
than they are if they were getting regular grocery store food.
Mm.
And that's not organic, right? And
Right.
then the 74% of the samples contained at least one of 29 harmful pesticides, 74% of them. And the fruits and vegetables were some of the highest levels. Some of the other highest ones were tacos, the tacos and the pizza. But
Mm.
next to that, right next to those were the high levels were the apples and bananas.
Oh, wow.
So if you are getting your kids fruits and vegetables, you really want to make sure that they are organic as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were 4 veterinary drugs and hormones found in 9 of the school lunch samples at levels up to 130 parts per billion of veterinary drugs and hormones. And these are drugs that are things like drugs that cause the cows to lactate more. And
Mm.
I have a dear friend who is a school counselor at a high school, and she told me that um, one of her students told her that she was standing in the shower. She was 15 years old at that morning, and she just started lactating.
Oh, my
She wasn't
gosh.
pregnant. She's not on the pill. Breasts started squirting milk out. And I think that's because of the veterinary drugs that are in our kids' food. And it's a very serious issue. How is somebody supposed to concentrate on school and be able to function if the hormones are being that messed up,
Right.
in their body? So very serious issue. And then 100% of the school lunch samples contain heavy metals. And when you look at the numbers, you may think that they weren't very high, but when you compare those numbers to what the EPA allows in drinking water, some of the levels were up to as high as 6,293 times higher than what the EPA allows in drinking water. So, and we know that these heavy metals are neurotoxic and
Mm-hmm.
can be permanently neurotoxic. I mean, it is very difficult to get heavy metals out of the body. So this is a very important issue that we address, how heavy metals are getting into our food supply. And then the last category was the majority of the samples were abysmally low in nutrients.
Mm.
And this is a major a major factor in a child's development, is whether or not they have the right nutrients at the right time in
Mm-hmm.
their development. And there are, many studies, including a book called Food and Behavior: The Natural Connection by Barbara R. Stitt. She won a Lifetime Achievement Award for it. This book shows that people, serial killers, parolees, violent criminals, all had very low levels of vitamins in their brains, prefrontal cortex, especially vitamin B, the B complex vitamins. And when she did her food studies and took out the sugary junk food from the
Mm-hmm.
prisons and the high schools, the recidivism rates reversed and the dropout rates were dramatically reduced. Like, for instance, in the high school, the dropout rate in a school of 5,000 kids was 500 a year. And when she switched out the foods to whole healthy foods and got rid of the sugars and the sodas and the junk foods in the schools, that dropout rate went down to 14.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. And in the prisons, the recidivism rate reversed. Like, instead of 70% going back into prison, 70% stayed out of prison.
Stayed out.
Yeah. So
Goodness.
switching out your food is a major factor in
Wow.
nutrient density and the elimination of pesticides and chemicals and
Mm-hmm.
food dyes. Food dyes are very impactful on kids' behaviors too.
Mm.
Food dyes and preservatives and synthetic chemicals, that can really wreak havoc on your kid's behavior. So I really urge anybody who's listening, if you have a child who is acting out, the first thing to look to is what they just ate. Don't make it wrong. Don't blame them. Don't say it's just a phase. Really look towards, what is it that my kid just ate, and how can I, support my child in balancing out their mood right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting and an important distinction to make that GMO is different than organic. There is a huge difference. And what you just described is, yes, GMOs are terrible, clearly, because that's engineered food, like you said. But the next piece of that is the fact that you really need to go organic as well. So going, when you look at the label and it says non-GMO, great, that's one step. But then really that second step is going all the way organic, because there's a ton of other things that are in the food beyond the GMOs, the engineered foods, because then there's all the pesticides and fungicides and all the things you just described, right? So that
Yes.
going that extra mile really is very important, even though it's a little bit more expensive in the long run. This is the way I think about it. It's expensive to buy it now, but it's so much more expensive to be sick later, or as you said, to deal with the long-term effects of behavior problems, or all of that.
Yes. Yeah, I know it. And I get that all the time. It is more expensive, but you really, it's you pay the farmer now or the doctor later. And
I love that saying.
and there are ways to budget, to come up with the money to buy organic as much as possible. And for us, it's things like buying consignment first, especially household items or clothes that are going to be used for a season, and and then discarded, right? Like, so you can carefully manage your budget. You don't have to buy the latest phones. You don't have to go on expensive vacations. Camping is great and way better for kids. There are ways to budget and manage your finances so that you can make organic food a priority, and especially the grains. So anything that you buy that's wheat, or oats, peas and beans, legumes, things like that, please make sure those are organic, because those are the ones that are being sprayed with glyphosate as a drying agent just before harvest. And that those are the ones that are going to have the highest levels of glyphosate. So, and then your fruits and vegetables, as much as possible, try to have those be organic as well, because those are the ones that will contain the other harmful chemicals that can cause all kinds of, cancer and neurotoxic behavioral issues as well.
Great.
And once you do, you will see a difference very soon. Like the studies have shown, within 1 week, there can be up to 60 to 70% of the pesticides eliminated from the body. And within 2 weeks, 100%.
Oh my goodness.
So it will happen very quickly, and you will start to see a difference in mood and behavior and sleeping ability. That's one of the first things that happens, is that kids start sleeping better, because what's going on scientifically, I just want people to know what's happening. Glyphosate has been shown to destroy the beneficial gut bacteria in the gut. We have all kinds of bacteria in our gut. Some are good, some are bad. That's not a technical, scientific phrase, but just for our understanding, right? Some are like E. coli is not as, that's pathogenic, right? E. coli and salmonella. So you want there to be a balance of those bacteria in your gut. And when you introduce glyphosate into your gut, you're destroying the beneficial gut bacteria and allowing for the proliferation of the pathogenic gut bacteria. The E. coli and the salmonella thrive under the presence of glyphosate. So when that happens, that pathogenic gut bacteria, they have something on the outer walls called lipopolysaccharides, and they signal the vagus nerve in the gut to tell the microglia cells in the brain to go and attack. It's like, bad guys, attack. And when they go and attack, they create an excitotoxin that then like excites the brain neuron endings, and they get excited and then they die. So then you've got brain neurons that are not alive anymore, that were previously connecting. Now they're no longer connecting. So that equals things like erratic behavior, screaming, tics, stammering, no lack of eye contact, things happening that should not normally aren't normally happening, behavioral issues. And so when you stop the introduction of glyphosate, that the gut bacteria has the chance to balance out,
Okay.
And if you put in sauerkraut and probiotics and things like that, then you're balancing out your gut bacteria, and you're going to start seeing things like the erratic behavior calming down.
Mm.
And in that gut bacteria, that's where melatonin and serotonin and guaranine, different hormones are stored in your gut
Mm.
that support your body to function properly. So if you balance out your gut bacteria, then you're going to have more normal levels of melatonin. You're going to
Okay.
be able to sleep better.
Sleep
If you
better.
balance
Yep.
out your gut bacteria, you're going to have normal levels of serotonin. Serotonin is what helps you feel satiated. Like, oh,
Mm.
I've had enough sugar, or I've had
Ah.
enough, I've had enough
Mm-hmm.
video games, or,
Mm.
for older people, that's it on the porn, right? But if you
Mm.
don't have the serotonin, then the addictions start,
Ah.
and the behavioral issues are come up. And
Mm-hmm.
so you've got to really support yourself in having a
Mm-hmm.
normal and balanced life by making sure you're balancing out your gut bacteria.
I have one more question, and then I want you to tell us how to find you. Last question is: you said
Sure.
something about the heavy metals are really hard to get out of the body. So, I mean, surely we have them. I know people do detoxes all the time. What would you suggest as a safe detox for a child?
Well, I'm not a doctor, but what I
Mm-hmm.
hear from doctors like Dr. Michelle Perro, I would follow her. She's a
Okay.
pediatrician. I believe that she does mention bentonite clay,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if she mentioned zeolite, but she also uses a lot of homeopathic remedies.
Okay.
And so there are things that you can use. We have on our website. I don't know if we still have it available or not, but I will double check. You can look up primary detox from BioRay. So even if we don't sell them and make them available as a fundraiser, then I would check them out. Primary detox by BioRay. Every batch is tested for pesticides and heavy metals. And she's a mom, and she's been using Chinese herbs and roots and wild crafted herbs and things like that for a very long time. So I would recommend primary detox.
Perfect. Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. That's wonderful. I think this has been fabulous, eye-opening, amazing information. Tell us a little bit about how we can find out more about you and about Moms Across America.
Sure. Yeah. You can go to momsacrossamerica.org. We'd love to connect with you. On Monday nights, we have a Moms Connect call at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and that goes for half an hour. And then at 7:30, we have a call called Neighborhood Food Network. And if you are interested in growing your own food and connecting with your neighbors to create local, if you have a child who is acting out, the first thing to look to is what they just ate. Don't make it wrong. Don't blame them. Don't say it's just a phase. Really look towards, what is it that my kid just ate, and how can I, support my child in balancing out their mood right now. Cool food security. We have a whole program and a support system. We have experts on that answer your questions about how to get started. But like for right now, you might want to get started in laying out your garden bed so that you can plant in the spring. So we have a whole network that you can connect with. It's nationwide, but we hope that you'll start it on your street, and we'll support you in doing that. So that's 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Monday nights. And you can get the invitation for that call by signing up on our website, momsacrossamerica.org. You click on Connect at the top, and then you can sign up for our newsletter, and you will get an invitation every Monday to join those calls. And we hope you'll do that.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I'm so glad you mentioned the neighborhood food. I forgot that we were going to talk about that. So I'm glad you talked about that, because I do believe in that. Local food security is key. So, well, again, Zen, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. Love talking to you. And maybe we can have you come back again and talk about other things.
Okay. Thanks, Mary
Great.
Jo. Thank you,
Thank
everybody,
you.
for listening. Take care. Bye-bye.
This has been the Teaching Your Toddler podcast with Mary Jo Tinlin. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you'll find us on our website at teachingyourtoddler.com, as well as on Facebook at Teaching Your Toddler, on Instagram, and on Twitter at Teaching Toddler. So join us again, and I hope you have a wonderful week. Thank you so much.